see it on the YouTube channel. I would like to take a second to remind everybody out there watching to subscribe to this and make sure you share it. I'm going to do my best to be evangelical about this a little more and get the word out, because I think what we're doing is we have a great crew now, and I think that there's a lot to learn. So on that note, I'm going to peace out, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for everything, Richard.
Thank you, guys. Great reviews this time.
You too, man.
Great seeing you, man.
We'll see you guys.
Before I pass it to Bill, I'm gonna piggyback real quick on the Japanese thing. I had a Japanese alternate selection, and I know I say this every single time. I mean, try to be brief about it, but I know it won't have. I'm gonna look at the clock and see. Time me, start timing me, folks.
All right.
Okay, so The Face of Another, 1966, by Hiroshi Teshigahara. So it was based on a Kobo Abe novel. He based a lot of his work on Kobo Abe. Actually, it's not 1966. I have it right here. 66, I think, is Woman in the Dunes, which became a countercultural hit in America, oddly, very oddly. No, they're both 1966. Or maybe,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, I
1 minute and you're off the rails.
Well, I just want to make sure, because I like to get my facts straight. Let me go back, because there is tie-in with that movie with this one. Woman in the Dunes, 64. Oh wow. So yeah. And The Woman in the Dunes is very out there. You know, y'all have seen it. And but anyway, same director, also black and white, also beautiful photography, also really bizarre music concrete score by Toru Takemitsu, who directed like chamber music. He did electronic music. He did a ton of soundtracks. He did stage work. He did soundtracks for a lot of big genre movies like Double Suicide and The Ceremony and Empire of Passion, and he's most known for Ron. I think he won maybe an Oscar or something from Cannes for Ron. That's the last big score he did that was kind of widely distributed, you know, outside of Japan. But he's a legend. I tried to do a little more research on him today just for the hell of it, and it was too dense. I mean, because I don't know music theory, so I would have to like sit and really pay attention to try to grasp it. But he's a master. So, and he sets the mood for this kind of stuff, and I think that kind of soundtrack has gradually made its way up to the mainstream over the decades. You know, a good example to me of a music concrete soundtrack is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, and I just think it's so I don't know, it's iconic. But so in this movie, you have Tetsuya Nakadai, who in my opinion is the greatest living actor right now, even though he doesn't act much anymore. This is him kind of at his peak, and he had done Harakiri with Kobayashi, and he was just amazing, and done some Kurosawa stuff. But basically, he's a guy who had an industrial accident. You immediately open with the industrial accident, and he's talking and telling some of his story, but it's him talking as an X-ray, his skull. So his teeth are moving up and down, and the whole thing is like that. It's really creepy. And he talks about how he stupidly tried to do something in the lab and basically destroyed his face. And so he's got bandages all over, Invisible Man style, and he's like that for quite a while. And his wife is crept out, won't sleep with him, but she keeps insisting everything's okay. And he's become very cynical. You know, he can kind of see through when people are trying to kind of minimize what's going on. And sometimes he makes dark humor jokes about him, which I thought some of them were pretty hilarious. But I mean, he's always just thinking, and you know, it's like self-pity also, but he's so dead on about like observations he makes about how people perceive you. People don't want to be close to you when you're deformed or handicapped or disfigured. So this doctor who's been helping him a little bit, he's kind of a scientist, but he's mainly a psychotherapist. He kind of dabbles in both, and he has this bizarre avant-garde laboratory with all these glass see-through things, and so you see all these double images of people. And his nurse is played by, I think her name is Kiruki Kuriyama. I might have it wrong. She's the one who starred in The Woman in the Dunes as the Woman in the Dunes. And she's the nurse in this, totally different kind of character. And the doctor, he's, it's interesting because he's basically trying to give him a way out and fulfill an experiment. So his experiment is he's created this kind of clay-like synthetic substance, but it's much tougher than clay. It's much stretchier. And he says, this could pass for flesh, and you see him playing with it. So again, you have these close-up avant-garde shots of him playing with these weird things with the music going crazy. And there's nothing expected in this movie. You could be having a narrative part and then boom, all of a sudden you're somewhere else. And there's actually another story that runs concurrent, but it's shorter, and it crops up out of the blue in weird parts of the movie. In the novel, it was a movie that the protagonist, Okayama, in this movie is watching. But in this one, he acts it out as a separate story. And basically, it's a girl who, as a little girl, was deformed by Hiroshima. And not really that deformed. She's really beautiful, but she has this really wild scar all through here. So she wears her hair over it. And eventually people see it and they make fun of her, give her a hassle. And in her story, the way it plays out toward the end, I'll just jump that out of the way. She feels like she can't connect with anybody but her brother. And finally it leads to, of course, incest, and then to, of course, her suicide. So, typical tragic Japanese story there. But very well done, very almost no dialogue. And they're short scenes, but like I said, they're chopped into the movie to kind of, I guess, reinforce the point of the movie or whatever. So he makes a mask. They ask this guy, they pay him a bunch of money to kind of mold it after his face. Just some guy they select. I forgot how they selected him. And they use that as a guide, and they map it all out scientifically, and like all the points in the face and like where they need to cover. And basically they need to cover all his face, like here and his ears. That's all been destroyed. His ears are kind of like sort of okay, but not perfect. And you never quite see his whole face. There's one time when he's switching into the mask, and it's real quick. And so if you fast forward it, or what do you do, frame by frame it, you can see it, but the makeup is still kind of murky, but it looks like nothing human. You can kind of see there's sort of a slit where there's an eye and a mouth, but I wouldn't want to be this guy. So he does kind of still have a nose. So using all these parameters, they make a mask for him. And the mask happens to look like Tatsuya Nakadai, who we've never seen before. So they use that conceit, kind of like in Dark Passage, where the guy is POV for the most part of the movie. Have any of you all seen Dark Passage with Humphrey Bogart and Candice Bergen? Haven't seen that film noir? So, well, anyway, in the beginning of the movie, he's POV. It's the POV shot of a criminal. He goes to a plastic surgeon, and when the plastic surgeon changes his face, it's Humphrey Bogart. So you never actually see Humphrey Bogart at that character. You don't see him as that character. This character, you only see his scars, the bandages. You never know what he looked like before. So you never find that out. So now he looks like Tatsuya Nakadai, and he's like, I'm gonna go fucking act, man. No, I'm kidding. So he decides he's gonna start, basically just he rents 2 separate apartments, and he's gonna have like a double or triple life, and he's gonna go out. One life he's gonna be at home with his wife, with the bandages. Then another, he has an apartment where he kind of like stores a lot of stuff, and usually he'll wear his bandages there, but he'll like clean his mask and stuff. But then he's got one apartment where he's this new character. Okay, he doesn't give himself a name. The doctor, strongly kind of implies, hey, you should probably come up with another name, and identity. And by this time, he's had these experiences, and his philosophy has gotten darker and broader. I mean, Tatsuya Nakadai has such an incredible voice, and the voiceovers, it's like he's descending into madness. I mean, it's kind of obviously that's what's happening. But like a lot of insane people, he makes a lot of good points along the way down. But he runs into his girl at where he rents the apartments, and she can recognize him. Like, she sees him as Tatsuya face, and she knows it was the guy who had the bandages. And he mentions it to the doctor. And the doctor's like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, she was like a mentally challenged girl. he said, I don't know, maybe there's something in developing brain that can kind of, that, or like how animals don't really read you, like cats don't read your face as a face. Like they don't exactly know what your face looks like. They know your voice, they know the feel of it. But if you're like a foot away, a cat can't recognize you at all from your face. It's your smell and your, what they hear. So this is kind of how the little girl was. That's not a major part of the plot, but it throws him off, obviously, because he's kind of, he's wanting to feel like a human again, walk among humans and do human things. Before this, he takes a long leave from his job when he still has the bandages on, and they're pretty cool with him because really they they don't want him around because of how he looks. So basically, they pay him a huge amount of money to go on vacation. So he's kind of a free man. I mean, except for his wife, and they become increasingly distant. And of course, he would like to get laid. I mean, it's not foremost on his mind, but he's a human being. He's a man, and uh, eventually, he follows his wife home as the new guy with the math. And you kind of she kind of you think sees him. I'm thinking, okay, does she want, it's like a sexual fantasy of hers, like a stalker who she doesn't know their name, and they just have passionate sex. Because that happens, and it doesn't just happen in movies. It hasn't happened to me, but it's happened to people I know. But it's like and that's kind of what happens. And after they have sex, he starts to take his mask off, and he's like, "It's me," and she's like, "I knew it was you all along. I just played along with this ruse of yours just to make you happy, just to make you just leave me alone." It's like he is like wrecked psychologically by that because she never seems like a very sharp character, but she kind of turns the screws on him, and it's kind of mean. Um, I mean, it was mean to deceive her, but at the same time, she did have sex with him. She knew who he was. She knew what he looked like under the mask. So I think as part of it was a fantasy of wanting to be reunited with him on some level, just not face to face like she used to be. But I think when it was over, she was just like, fuck you, And so he's even more anguished. So he walks around and has more existential thoughts going on in his head. And him and the doctor go to drink together. And the doctor and him, they have this. One thing is when they go down the sidewalk in Tokyo or whatever Japanese city they're in, uh, for a short time, all of the people behind them have these clay faceless heads. I mean, so they made up like, I don't know, 50 people like that. And they're just standing there talking. They don't take notice. It's for us to see as some kind of subtext with, you know. So they go into a bar, they start drinking. And again, he kind of pulls you into it because at first it's a German bar. So there's a lot of white people in it, and they're playing German music and eating German food and drinking this huge thing of mead or ale or whatever. And when they start talking, all the music you can't hear it. Everybody's still doing stuff, but you only hear them talking. And they have this long conversation, and now you see the doctor himself is kind of going crazy because he's so amazed that this worked and that he's walked around for days now with no name, no identity, never been shaken down by any authorities. He has money, cash he can use, and he's free. And it is an amazing concept to me. And the doctor is just like, maybe one day everyone will have a mask. And then he starts going into this whole thing about identity. Allegedly, from what I've read, again, this is like what Richard mentioned, a commentary on Japanese society of the time, because identity and versus, the collective, it's a big thing. It was a big thing then. I don't know how they feel about it now. They seem a little more individualistic, but I'm no expert. So yeah, and after that, Okayama's he kind of seems a little sinister. He's kind of like, I'm kind of sick of this guy. And he kills him. And I'm like, why did you kill your only tether to reality or society? Like your only quote unquote friend who knew the truth. I mean, his wife knew the truth, but she's never going to tell anybody. Too embarrassed. And so now he feels he's totally free, but like, what does he do? And of course, it ends on an existential note. He just walks the earth in Japan, and you make your own conclusions. But he's pretty definitively on one level gone insane. On another level, he's reached some enlightenment. But him and the doctor both were brilliant, both were fatalistic, but they couldn't meet up. They were I think they were each selfish for their own reasons with this technology. So that's the movie. Has anyone seen it?
No, I haven't seen it. Yeah,
I think it's one of the greatest Japanese films I've ever seen, one of the greatest films I've ever seen, and one of the greatest science fiction or horror films I've ever seen.
What's it called again?
The Face of Another.
The Face of Another. Okay.
It came out on Criterion and a Teshka horror set and DVD, but only Woman in the Dunes has come out on Blu-ray, and of course that sells. But I'm like, put Face of Another on Blu-ray. God, I still have my DVD, and I probably worn it out by now. But so Richard, not Richard, Bill, what do you got for us?
Just quickly, a film I really love. I've been on a panel or two where we talked about science fiction movies that nobody thinks are science fiction, like Seconds.
Cool.
And this one, and of course someone will say, well, that's not really science fiction. I'm like, well, thanks. You understand
I'm very inclusive.
Premise of the panel. Yeah. I mean, okay, so it's Kiss Me Deadly from
Yes.
hold on. Yeah. It's 1955. I think it qualifies. Kiss Me Deadly is really one of the last.
And tell him the director.
Robert Aldrich.
Yeah.
Who's an interesting character.
Yeah, he did a lot of big action movies.
Did a lot of great stuff. Was not really all that, I guess, considered a success. I mean, by the end of his life, he'd pretty much lost everything.
if you're gonna watch it on Criterion. Just saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I need that. I had it on DVD. I've not upgraded. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
you had a lot of
Have
good stuff.
treasure it.
And
Awesome.
this is a film noir, and if you're going to watch film noir, this is not a typical one, but it's a great one.
Yeah.
And I would argue it's one of the last of the great ones. 55, it was getting a little past
Yeah.
the golden age of noir.
I would go with that.
And it's marvelous. It's it's so bleak. It's the noirest of noir. There are no heroes in this movie. Everyone is corrupt. Everyone is bad. The hero, Mickey, not Mickey Spillane. Yeah, Mike Hammer. And man, he fits the role perfectly. He's not a hero. He's a bully with a job.
He's an anti-hero.
He's a scumbag.
I don't even think he's much of an anti-hero. He's a villain, but he's in a world where everyone's a villain.
Yeah.
He
enjoys hurting people.
He enjoys hurting.
You see it when he's literally punching people and he's just smiling.
He's a
There's
sadist.
a scene where he closes some guy's hand in a desk. And the satisfied, happy smile on his face. It's not that he's just happy that the guy's going to tell him what he wants to know, because that was his
He's
crime.
a sadist.
Absolutely.
And yet you don't really hate him that much because everyone's such a scumbag.
You know who he reminds me of? And I mean, this is a very big stretch, but I'm just talking about that basic. He reminds me of the Punisher. I mean, he's just does whatever he wants to anybody who's a criminal.
But the
Punisher,
when he was written well, was in large part dangerous because he had something most of the people he was fighting didn't have. He had a philosophy.
Right,
and he was true to his code. So there was that. There was a lot of these anti-heroes, they have an honor system. That you might be a hitman with a heart of gold, or hey, I don't shoot kids. Oh well, here's a cookie. Good
even Scarface won't shoot.
Right. But
Mike Hammer might.
Well, Ralph Meeker's Mike Hammer. If you're not giving him the appropriate amount of deference and information, and you got your kid with you, he will slap the shit out of your kid. He loves slapping people. He's a slap.
Get away from me, kid.
Ralph Meeker's Mike Hammer would kick your dog.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And laugh about it.
Yeah.
There's 3 films. If you watch Kiss Me Deadly, Kubrick's Paths of Glory, and I don't know if you all know this one. It's on Criterion too. Something Wild, the original with Carol Baker, and he's playing 3 totally different kinds of characters.
Meeker was a guy who was born too soon because he doesn't have leading man good looks, at least not in this movie. although he's the leading man. But if he'd been born 10 years, 15 years later, there would have been a lot more roles for a person of his talents. Anyway, I mean, the film opens up. The film, from the very get-go, you know you're in trouble because the film opens up with the credits going backwards.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that.
And
I love that.
The black and
the
white
heavy breathing of Cloris Leachman.
Oh, heavy, gorgeous Cloris Leachman running, wearing a trench coat and nothing else. He picks her up because he's, what the hell. And within short time, she's killed and he's almost killed. And he spends the rest of the movie not trying to get revenge for this attractive dame getting killed, but because he figures that whatever she was killed for, there's probably a good bit of money behind it. Someone, this is a detective who basically blackmails people. He's got a gorgeous girlfriend who loves him because, women can be stupid like that.
Secretary.
The secretary. And he uses her for the blackmailing, just basically entrapping fate.
Basically, he pimps her out.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
He pimps her out. Wow. He pimps her out. He takes advantage of the fact that she loves him to just pimp her out to get information.
Just wow.
Yeah, he's just a terrible person.
Awful. But who's even worse? You know who's even worse? And boy, do I love this dame. And I feel okay saying dame for this one because this movie, someone once said this movie looks like it was cast with a couch. It does. It's got this level of sleaze, and yet it's so well made. It's not sleazy in the usual sense of the word, but it just gives you that feeling. It's just so
it
good.
Objectifies women. It objectifies violence.
It objectifies everything. I mean, this is an unpleasant world that they're living in. And
who's that guy who plays the police detective? Mr. Serious with his voice.
I don't know. Albert Decker. Albert Decker is one of the bad guys. Albert Decker
in real life. Great voice.
Real life, they found him hanging, wearing women's underwear.
Oh my gosh!
In his shower. Yeah. They think it was an accident, but who the hell knows? Everyone. But okay. So the woman that he runs into is played by. Hold on. Let me make sure I get it right. Gabby Rogers did not do a lot. But boy, she is perfect. She's perfect for him because. She's also pretty damn dumb, but very convinced of that she's not as dumb as everyone thinks she is, and the tests would show. She's got she's a pixie from hell, man. She is just bad news. Anyone with two neurons to rub together meeting this woman would say, this woman is bad news. I need to run as fast as possible. But Mike, of course, no.
Bill, you in describing this movie remind me of a beatnik.
There you go. There you go.
I mean, that's a compliment.
Yeah, nobody's very smart in this movie.
No, and yet, but they're carrying around nuclear secrets. They're looking for the great Watson. There's a box with something in it. And once you see this movie for the first time, you're like, well, hell, they're just ripping off Pulp Fiction. Oh wait, let me check the times. Nope. This has been
millennials can be a little short-sighted about
it. This movie has been referenced so many times. It's so influential for a movie that
Repo Man.
It did okay. Oh yeah,
yes.
Repo Man, Pulp Fiction.
That's a running theme tonight. Is didn't do very well at the box office.
Came out a little ahead of its time. Very influential with the French New Wave that followed. I mean, they worshipped it. Quentin Tarantino had this film and probably watched it once a week. Because it's cool. It's a cool film.
It is.
And what a freaking ending. What an ending. I'm going to give away the ending now. If you haven't seen the movie.
Which ending are you going to use?
Well, okay, the real ending. The real ending. Well,
good,
I mean,
good. That's what Criterion's got on there too.
The important part is this. Gabby, dumb that she is, manages to kill even dumber people and shoot them and everything, and finally gets her hands on the box, opens it up, and is completely destroyed because inside it is nuclear hell. And I mean nuclear hell because not only is it like bright and sets you on fire, but it screams at you as it does it. That sound will never get out of my head. Although I'll tell you something, there's an experiment we do in science class. We're not allowed to do it anymore. You drop gummy bears into an oxidizing agent, and I can't remember the name of the chemical, but if I did remember it, I wouldn't say it because you shouldn't do this. There's a reason they banned it.
I might go do it if you tell me.
Yeah. And it oxidizes it and shoots out hellish flames that also make this sound that sounds like we tell the kids it's the gummy bears.
So you've done this experiment.
Oh, hell yeah. It's a great experiment. And I've even seen, you can even find it on YouTube where they have a giant gummy bear that they put into a giant test tube with a giant amount of this oxidizing agent and probably burned down the school.
It's amazing.
The sound it makes, and that's the sound this thing makes as it just
I'll tell you what, it's
consumes this woman.
The sound is also, I swear it's almost identical to the Cthulhu type creature in the Dunwich Horror movie.
In the movie,
That makes perfect
Yeah.
sense.
when
to
it's,
me.
you know, that
I think it's worse.
it's like that.
Yeah, it is kinda
Get a
like
bunch of movie nerds together at a restaurant and everything and ask them to, hey, what was that sound that they made in Kiss Me Deadly? And then
Exactly.
you will empty that place. People will flee. They'll leave their French fries behind as they run out.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
And then we see our, well, I guess what passes for our protagonists, Mike and Vera. They in the film version I saw on TV, which was the first time I saw it, it ends with the house just blowing up and apparently everyone dead. I'm like,
Except
WTF?
them, they run
Well,
to
no.
the water.
No,
towards the
they
water.
didn't.
No,
Yeah, they
dear.
ran into the ocean.
It just ended with it blowing up. There was
Yep,
no
that's
clue
what-
that they got out. And at
that's
the
right.
end, the original ending, the true ending that somehow somebody must have clipped it out or something, shows them running to the water and watching this. Now I gotta say, I don't know if you guys are students of nuclear radiation, but there's no chance that they survive this film. I mean, this
water.
Yeah.
Well,
They're dead.
what I saw on the DVD, guys, is the original ending was they're running to the water. You see the house blow up, and you assume they got away. The other ending, they're running to the water. You see the house blow up, and the explosion gets bigger, and then you don't know what the fuck happens. Does that sound right, Keith?
I think the
yeah.
correct last shot in the film is them in the water witnessing it.
That's the
they-
correct one.
I think that's the correct
Aldrich,
But what changed for the theatrical and what most people saw for most of the time was just the big explosion, and you just assume they must have
the
gotten blown up
building.
in it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Aldrich said that the world blew up. I mean, it destroyed the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
That was his intention, which I don't
Apparently-
know if that's Spillane's intention.
well, apparently this was the stuff they used to make the Beneath the Planet of the Apes bomb. So that I guess
Yeah, it was
I
a
guess it's
powerful
still
bomb.
science fiction then, because we've made some big bombs, but not that big.
Yeah.
But things
They
are
worship
definitely
that
bad.
Well, a word on Spillane. The book Kiss Me Deadly was nothing at all like
No.
the movie.
Oh,
no,
Spillane
nothing at all.
Absolutely hated the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Aldrich hated Mickey Spillane and hated his book. So
Which
My dad loved Mickey Spillane. That was his generation, man. But what do you guys think of? Not to go too far off the topic, but how do you feel about Murder My Sweet? That's my favorite. Is that Mike Hammer or is that Marlowe? That's Philip Marlowe. Why do I always
That's
think of
Philip
them
Marlowe.
together, though? I guess because they're
Murder
just
My
both
Sweet.
great detective movies.
Yeah, they're just classics.
Iconic. Yeah, it's Philip Marlowe, but he played Philip Marlowe different than people did back then. But then, of course, this is before James Garner played Marlowe and a whole bunch
Right.
of weird.
Didn't Stacy Keach do Mike Hammer? I mean, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stacey.
Most-
Yeah. Great Mike Hammer.
Most
yeah.
people, when they think of Mike Hammer, probably think of Stacy Keach,
Yeah,
who's like a
long
big
show,
freaking
80s.
Build-A-Bear teddy bear compared to
Yeah.
Ralph Meeker here.
My
Yeah.
mom
Yeah.
loved Mike Hammer with Stacy Keach.
There's even a not terribly great Mike Hammer movie where he is portrayed by that master thespian Mickey Spillane. He played his
Spillane.
own character.
Oh yeah.
He's pretty rough in that too.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
finally got tired of everybody doing him wrong, so decided, I'll just be him.
This is when you find out it's amazing how actors will portray themselves. Muhammad Ali played Muhammad Ali, 50 Cent played 50 Cent, and they're not terribly good at it. And you think, okay, dude, Muhammad, yeah, you're a great actor. You get out there and you're doing all kinds of stuff.
Well, he can freestyle, but he can't.
When
can't
that
do a
camera
script.
comes on, suddenly it's like, do I hold my hands like this, or how do I walk? But yeah, so this is fun, and if it gets you into film noir, you'll be well rewarded with just some marvelous,
love
dark,
film noir.
grim. People who think that in the old days everything was corny and it was just Mickey Rooney. It
was
wasn't
just
always,
A shame.
there was some darkness there, and they weren't afraid to hit some pretty dark things. I'm always impressed when I see an old movie and some of the views that are expressed would be considered like woke today, like but and I think it would surprise both people who who think that they were the ones who discovered this. You look at something like Devil and Daniel Webster, marvelous movie, by the way.
Reviewed on this channel by Scott. But go ahead.
Oh, see, I missed that part. There, you know, when the devil, Mr. Scratch, is talking about, you know, who's more of an American than I am. He's talking about like the injustices that were done to the Indians when they got here and everything. You're like, oh damn, yeah, okay, that's kind of cool. And you look at, you know, you watch a John Wayne movie and you're sort of expecting it's going to be very jingoistic and, you know, white man good, Indian bad. You look at the Searchers and you're like, you
Oh,
know,
yeah,
he
the
ain't the
Searchers.
hero in the
No,
Searchers.
he's not a hero.
No,
And-
not at all.
And it's not like
Also
the people
covered
back
on this
then
channel
thought
by
he was
Chuck.
the hero. Yeah, well, it's a great movie. I mean, you know, there's a lot of nuances. People back then were not the primitive screwheads that I'm afraid
No,
far
there were
too
some,
many.
there were
people
some
today.
smart, sharp screenwriters working. in
Yeah, you
Hollywood.
just have to
Yeah.
kind of like pick them out. I mean, because yeah, there was a lot, they were churning out so many of them, and yeah, a lot of it is jingoistic, but you get things like the Searchers and it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, John Wayne may be problematic these days, but that's a good movie, and it's not even just good for the times, it's good now. I mean, it's a good movie.
It's a good story.
Different era, but yes, it's always good looking back in that era. It's like a window into that. I love that. It's like time travel when I watch an old movie or another movie from another world.
It's when you
another
see the
world, another
real
country.
It's when you see the real artists come out. I mean, a Western is just just a location. It's just a canvas. What you paint on that canvas depends on your talents. And just like with the superhero movies today,
Agreed.
we're at the point where anyone can write a superhero movie. It's very easy to do, but people have gotten tired of the basic three act.
We're getting to
hero
that
thing.
level where it's evolved so much that they're either really good because they do something different with it, or they just do the same thing and then they're just forgettable. You know, they fail. You know, and it's one of the few times when critical and fans are aligned with the box office, where the ones that aren't really as well made or well written don't make as much money. That was not usually the law in Hollywood.
Right, yeah.
No, that's.
But I think people, but it shows how much that genre, the Marvel vibe that we all grew up with, it's now ingrained in millions of people through those movies.
Yeah.
And it's like they feel it. They don't feel like we do, but they feel it. You know, I'll run into all kinds of people that are like, oh man, Endgame. And I'm like, this suburbanite would never read a Marvel comic. What? You know, but you know, they it's the characters. It's the characters.
It's the characters, and I'm glad to see it. They finally are starting to recognize one of the most important parts of any film crew, the casting agent, the person who does the casting. A lot of these movies, a lot of these TV shows, just imagine Breaking Bad with a different cast.
Yeah. No.
Imagine The Godfather with Danny Thomas in the lead, which it was the original choice. These things, I think The Godfather with Danny Thomas would have ended up being the Oscar, because I love Harlan Ellison, and the Oscar is one of the biggest pieces of shit that has ever been committed to film. But then when I'm listening to it, and I know he was rewritten and they bastardized his script, but I hear Ellison. I hear some Ellison in some of the dialogue, and it's awful. But what if it wasn't? Who the hell was who's a singer? Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett. They cast Tony Bennett in the lead role. Man, a lovely man. Can't act. Can't act. So when if he had been saying any dialogue, it would have been terrible. Yeah. But when he's saying Harlan Ellison, purple prose, this larger than life stuff, that's like Vito Corleone. People in The Godfather don't talk like humans. They talk like archetypes. And that's great if you have, you know, Pacino and Khan and Marlon Brando. But if you've got
John Cazale.
Yeah, John Cazale. Oh yeah, I mean they can make that work. They can make it work.
Yeah.
But if you just get people who are, you know, maybe B-level actors, okay, they have their role, but they cannot take you up that step.
There is a brilliant, in my opinion, B-movie take on The Godfather. It's not a remake or anything. I think the two Black Caesar movies are a saga.
Is that Larry Cohen?
Larry Cohen. I think, you know, Williamson's not a great actor as far as range, but as far as charisma and feeling like a real guy would say this stuff, he's incredible. And I mean, he, you know, that character, and they made a sequel because it did so good, and they had to basically retcon sort of the end of the last one. So the whole
Oh
like,
yeah,
first,
well,
first 10 minutes is explaining why he didn't actually die. At
I
the
got
end.
better.
But
Yeah.
they did it well. I mean, they did it with great music, a lot of tension, like they're wheeling him in the hospital, and they got guns on all the doctors. And you, I don't know, man. I have Hell Up in Harlem on Blu-ray, but I still don't have Black Caesar on Blu-ray. But I'd like to cover those two sometime because I really like that character, and I like the way
Yeah.
Hell Up in Harlem ended because, you know, he's really not an evil guy. I mean, he does a lot of evil things.
Yeah. Well, he's no Dolomite, but you know.
Well, Dolomite doesn't kill as many people as Tommy Gibbs does, but he does, you know, nearly kill them with his karate kicks, which he can barely do, but it's very entertaining. Well, we're going to probably cover some more of this kind of stuff in the near
Yeah,
future.
yeah, we'll have to do. Listen, I
Yeah.
gotta run off.
Okay.
But yeah, Kiss Me Deadly. Come on, folks. If you haven't seen some of these movies, I mean,
Yeah.
look, some of them are kind of obscure. Like, God help you. Good luck finding Colossus, the Foreman Project. I've been wanting to do that. I do decades of horror, the 1970s and 1980s, and I've been kept talking about Colossus. It's like as soon as it shows up, I'm going to review it. It's been years, and it isn't
I would
showing
say
up
go to-
anywhere.
Go to Shout Factory. That's where I
You just have to buy the Shout Factory.
I know.
Yeah,
Oh no, I know
yeah,
that. I can.
yeah.
Oh, I've got a copy. But for most of these podcasts, they want us to only do films that normal people can see, like they can stream it. But
Well, no, you know, Tubi
Get
eventually
ambitious,
will have
folks.
everything. Tubi
Yeah.
will have everything, at least for a short
eventually,
time.
oh,
Colossus will be on Tubi. I know it.
you
It
wonder
does-
if there's
it does
something that's
come
holding
through.
it up.
It does come through
Yeah.
occasionally, like on Prime. I've noticed it, but it comes and goes. So that's
Yeah,
kind of
agreed.
same thing with Ground Star.
Well,
It'll like pop up and suddenly it's like, oh hey, it's on streaming, and then boom, now it's not.
Also, watch YouTube because a lot of people, as soon as they buy
Oh,
that
I know.
Blu-ray, they'll dupe it to YouTube.
they dupe it. I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
It
Keep
doesn't
it as
last long.
long as they'll let them.
Yeah.
Sometimes
yeah.
these are major movies. Like when was the last time Excalibur was streaming anywhere? Years.
Yeah.
No,
I'd love to
it-
see that in the
what is
theater,
it?
man.
If you-
Netflix, I think, had it not that long.
God dang.
Did
well,
any
then
of you
would've-
guys? Did
ah.
any of you
Yeah.
guys see that in the theater?
Oh yeah,
Excalibur?
I
No.
saw it opening night.
I saw it
Come
3
on.
times in the
Did
theater.
you see it,
I
Chuck?
was obsessed with it.
No,
Absolutely.
I've seen it, not in the theater.
I
no.
was at my peak of Arthurian legend
Mhm.
obsession, and I could not get my mom to shell out any money or take me to the theater.
See,
I
It
was,
was
I was in high
depressing.
school and I just couldn't get enough of it. I mean, I was back
Yes.
in there for 3 weeks in a row going and seeing that thing.
Yep.
And, huge crushing.
I don't
on
have a
Helen
copy
Mirren.
anymore.
it's such a gorgeous movie.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It was college. That was my prime movie going period.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, Excalibur was great. Hey guys, it was
All right,
great
buddy.
talking to you. Have a
Take
good
care.
weekend,
You
okay?
too, man.
Yeah,
Great work.
care.
Thank you.